For the first time ever, you get to tailor your message to each individual. And that has never happened. It really hasn't happened because part of this innovation gives you accurate, verifiable data. And so when you receive that, you can now tailor the message. So instead of tailoring healthcare, I'm tailoring advertising.
Welcome to What Gets Measured, a NinjaCat podcast about marketing, performance management, metrics, and effectiveness. Because what gets measured gets managed. I'm your host, Jake Sanders. Peter Cranstone is the CEO of 3P Mobile, a technology company built to harness the power of digital ecosystems through consumer choice. Peter has been at the forefront of internet and mobile innovation for over 3 decades, improving performance, security, privacy, and personalization. Here to talk about ecosystem-centered market strategies is the one and only Peter Cranstone. Yay!
And the crowd go wild.
And they did. Calm down, people. Sit down.
Please, come on. Yeah.
Oh, it's too much. Let's just start with a little bio on you, your career path from being a pilot to a tech pioneer. Talk to us how that evolved.
A lot of it, thank you, Jacob, for the great intro. A lot of it it's really based on curiosity. I'm really one of those people who just likes to figure out how things work. And so if I've given a suitable challenge, then all I want to do is to solve that challenge. So for example, in my, for the flying career, I started off in England and I got all my flying licenses all the way up to the airline transport pilot's license. And then there's nowhere else to go but just to sit and fly. But I knew how to fly. So then I came to the States and I repeated everything because maybe I thought flying would be different over here. And it isn't. And so I reached the point at 29 years old where I'd accumulated all the licenses. I'd got enough flight hours. I'd made captain. I was turbine rated. I had all the credentials ready to go to the bigs, the majors. And I went, what else am I going to do when I get there? I'm just going to sit. In those days, you had flight engineers. I would sit sideways, right seat, left seat. And then by the time I get to my ripe old age now, 65 in March, I would be retiring probably as a captain on a 787 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I could think of nothing more boring because I had figured it out.
Yeah.
So I talked to my wife and I decided that, I would get into this new thing called computers. And I knew nothing about computers. And this is a story that not many people have heard because I don't talk about it a lot. But this is my one and only failure in tech. So my uncle was a British mathematician. He was an absolute genius at math and some AI systems. And I got talking to him one day. So this would have been it'd be 1990. And I called him up. He was in England. And I said, hey, David, how's it going? What are you doing? And he said, well, I've worked on this new data compression technology, and it's something Einstein couldn't solve. So I was young and naive and, full of piss and vinegar.
Sounds great.
Let's do it, man. So I flew to England. And it's the most fascinating thing, Jacob, is so I sit down in his room, and you probably don't remember the Tandy Radio Shack 80, the Trash 80.
No.
It was a really, oh my goodness, one of the very first computers out there.
Love it.
And so here was the demo. The demo was I would generate a single byte at random. So there are only 256 conditions in a byte, 0 through 255, which means there's 256 conditions. So you generate this byte, and then David's algorithm would make a bit disappear. Well, that's impossible. Because how do I bring it back? Because what I would do then is he would encode it into a new format. And again, I knew nothing about this. I have no degrees. I have nothing.
I currently don't know anything about this. Keep going.
So then we go to another computer and he said, and we've written down the bits, and there were 7 of them. So we wrote down the bits, and then he said, type the bits in, and the byte came back. And I went, how do you do that? A bit, I mean, you've got 8 bits. You can't get any smaller than 8 bits. Well, there's Claude Shannon, the law of information theory. There's the second law of thermodynamics. And long story short, I started this company and there is a patent on it out there in the patent office. And it describes the journey that we went through to compress a byte. Unfortunately, I raised money back in the day for all of this and everything, and we were going to change the world, And then David died. He had a massive heart attack while he was coding, and he died.
Oh.
So there's me going, well, how hard can this be? And we needed decimal precision out to 14 decimal places and goodness knows what, which obviously back in 1992 was not possible.
Wow.
So I taught myself to code, and I reverse engineered his code at a different level so that I could use a different precision amount. And I said to my wife, I said, if I can prove this thing works, I will keep going. But if I can prove that it doesn't work, I will stop. I was so convinced that I was going to be able to keep going on this, and it became a love affair and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? I reverse engineered it. It took me 9 months. I wrote a 76-page paper on it, including all the math, and it failed. And I learned an incredible lessons, a lot of lessons. The first lesson was it taught me to dream. It taught me to stretch my mind, and if I needed to learn quantum mechanics or mathematics at a complex level, I simply learned it. It never occurred to me that I couldn't learn it. It just occurred to me that I needed to learn it to solve this problem. So I went down so many different disciplines. And I mean, we got into compression, we got into forward-looking analysis, we got into examining the flow of bytes that were being spat out by this thing and then reimagining those in a cascading effect. So it got all complicated and crazy, and everyone told me I was stupid. But what I did learn is I learned to code. I learned to do an awful lot of different domains. But I also learned is I am never going out the door again until the product is working.
A lot of people would argue with you. They're out here.
And that's it. So I think of, some of the latest, greatest claims, Thanos being one of them with the blood measuring equipment, is never again have I ever stepped out of the door without the technology working.
Yeah. Well, and people get excited about ideas. People get excited about new ways to think, technological means to get to those new thoughts. And that's why when I came across your ecosystem economy on LinkedIn, I was like totally enchanted because it really is, it just feels right. It feels like it's speaking to certain frustrations that we have. And it has that promise, but there's a lot of technical stuff. And so I just kind of want to keep it a little high level here. How, like when we're talking about ecosystem economy, how do you define that? And why do you think people should embrace this ecosystem-centered market business strategy? I mean, just unpack that a little bit for us.
I think it's very difficult actually for them to process it and to engage with it. And here's why. And John Singer, I have to thank him because, by December, I was out of ideas to how do I even present this thing? Because I'm a technologist and, what you're looking for is business strategy. And I am a business person, but how do I've got this new innovation and it absolutely works, but how do I marry the two? So how do I go upstairs and put it in terms that the CEO understands? So then I bumped into John's website and I go, oh my God, this guy just saved me. And he's talking about ecosystems. And the more I read about it and the more I looked at his explanations of what it can do and what it can enable, I said, this is the future. But like everything, I said, I think John's brilliant. And I go, John, why aren't they breaking down your door? Why aren't they calling you? Why isn't Jacob interviewing you and instead of me? So the first question I had is, he tells you the what and the why. And then, but he doesn't say the how.
Right. And then, so really quickly, give us that what. What is the ecosystem-centered strategy?
His idea, and it's really simple, is a carnival of markets. And it's a wonderful way of explaining. I would never, because I'm British and I'm proper, and I would never say it's a carnival of markets.
It does sound a little chaotic.
But you know what? Ultimately, he's right, because what is a carnival of markets? And when you go to his website, it's got this merry-go-round with all of the seats that you sit in at merry-go-round and fly around in this thing. It's a carnival place, and they're all different markets. Now, McKinsey have written about the ecosystem economy, the integrated network economy. And really what it is it's a carnival of marketplaces. It's healthcare, it's education, it's food, it's all of these different markets that make up ecosystems. And I go, I totally get it. I think that's a brilliant idea. So imagine we're on the Titanic. And what we do is we got this huge open space, and you and I go out and lay out all of this carnival of markets. And we have deck chairs, and each deck chair has a name on it. Oh, this is healthcare, so we'll put that over here. And this one is finance, so we'll put that one over there, and so on and so forth, until the whole deck is covered in a carnival of markets. And what he says is, and he's got 5 value propositions for it. One of my favorite ones, and it's a little geeky, but work with me here. And he talks about system entrepreneurship. And it's what it really boils down to is you and I look at that carnival of markets, those deck chairs on the Titanic, and we say to ourselves, you know what? Why don't we arrange that one, this one, and that one, and create a new holistic system, ecosystem of just those markets? And I go, oh, my goodness, what a brilliant idea. So we've got 100 different deck chairs, but you and I look at it and say, yeah, and the bigs control a lot of the deck chairs.
They even control the Titanic, is what I heard.
They even control
the
Titanic.
icebergs, anyway.
Yeah, but then you and I say, you know what, there's an opportunity here. Why don't we grab 5 from here, 4 from there, 3 from one over there, 1 from over here? We've created a new ecosystem. And essentially what he's saying is you've now created a holistic network. It's a new network because it's comprised of different things.
And but it may be slowly dawning on the audience, like, oh, I think I get it. Like right now, what you're doing is we're an entrepreneur. I'm going to push this product. I'm going to be brand centered. I'm only able to do this with my brand, in my channel, in my vertical, in my industry, system. Right. Go ahead, please.
If we add those deck chairs to our existing system, all of a sudden we've got the chance for greater engagement.
And you're also thinking about a natural product extension, not vertically, but horizontally outwards towards the audience, which just sounds like marketing. So you talked. So we're going to give links to all this stuff too in the show.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
But what you've described is brilliant because you've gone vertical, product market fit, specific wedge. What you and I have then said, and what he says is build an ecosystem of vendors from a carnival of vendors to create new products, content, and services from a horizontal layer that can delight the consumer.
And actually interact and be relevant to the consumer. Because a lot of people are like, that ad's not relevant to me. Well, you wouldn't, if you were really thinking at a systems level, you would be in the right carnival. And if you don't like this carnival, you can go to another one it's already getting my head.
No. Because that leads in, well, if I don't like this carnival, now we haven't got to the user yet.
I know.
You just brought up the user. But we'll just briefly touch the user. So you're the user, and you've just joined this, and you look at this carnival and you say, I really don't like that. So you leave. And I go, well, that didn't work, did it? And then I pull up and I look at the carnival and I go, I like 3 of the ideas, but the other 3, I don't agree with those.
Mm-hmm.
But now as you and I, as the carnival barkers who put this thing together, who's rearranged the chairs on the Titanic, what do? You know what? We spent time, money, effort, resources We're building these new holistic ecosystem. And Jacob didn't like any of it. And Peter only liked 2 of the 3 things.
Mm.
So there's a VC, Andreessen Horowitz, A16Z, years ago, he wrote this wonderful blog post. It's called Decentralizing Self-Driving Money.
Mm.
And it's really clever. And the whole idea was you would enter the market, product market fit, exactly what you just said. We just went vertical, you and I. And then you would cross-sell into a constellation of other products, content, and services. You and I have just created this ecosystem of deck chairs, eventually gaining 100% mind and wallet share of each customer.
Mm.
And he said, this has never been done. But they never tell you why. Well, because Jacob didn't like the ecosystem I put together for him.
Mm.
He said he would like it. So I rearranged the deck chairs for him, and he took one look and said, I've changed my mind.
Mm.
And Peter pulls up and he says, well, I like a few of them, but I don't like the rest.
Mm.
So instead, I get 0% of Jacob's wallet share and mine share, and you get 3% of mine.
Okay, so before we go on anymore, we've described the ecosystem, kind of thought around the strategy. We gave a great metaphor of rearranging deck chairs, kind of rethinking the way we're approaching marketplaces. Can you very briefly, as if we were in an elevator and we only have 40 floors to go, could you explain quickly this technological innovation that you've been working on, after that secure socket layer stuff, like start there and then give us the WeChat comparison and then talk about, the overarching technical infrastructure that would make this ecosystem-centered marketing strategy possible.
Right, so let's keep it super simple. So we'll just start the elevator and we're going for our ride.
Okay.
And we've already discussed all of this stuff, and then I say to you, Jacob, what do you want? You're the user. You're the consumer. I want deck chairs for me.
Yeah, I want my deck chairs, relevant stuff, ads that make sense, deals, offers, things of these nature, like original promise of the internet kind of stuff.
Right. And then you say to me, well, Peter, what do you want? I said, well, I want all the same things he wants, but I want them tailored to me. And so we both look at each other and say, well, why can't we tailor this in real time? Why can't we tailor from this carnival of markets? Why can't we be smart enough to always pick the choices that Jacob likes and always pick the choices that Peter likes?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's impossible. You can't do that because, and this is where we get into the technical explanation, is how do you present a constantly changing carnival of markets for each individual person who connects to, who gets on the Titanic? So we get on the Titanic, all the chairs, you walk on and all the chairs change perfectly just for you. I walk on a second later, all the chairs change perfectly for me. Oh, and then we need to do it for the other 8 billion people on the planet. Well, therein lies the rub, as the bard says.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I look at it, this idea of his, even though it's brilliant, will forever remain just a brilliant idea until we can figure out how to tailor just what Jacob wants to see.
Mm-hmm.
So the very first thing you've got to be thinking about, second floor now and still rising, is what does Jacob look at on his phone? Because we're all on the phone these days.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's opened up his app, okay? And we'll call it the choice app. And so he wants to see his choices. Well, I've got the same app open, and I want to see my choices. We've got 8 billion people crowded in the elevator, and they're all got their hand up saying, I want my choices.
Right.
But we've got this enormous carnival of markets. We've got an economic center, an economic unit, one unit, a conductor. And we say the conductor, tailor it for Jacob, tailor it for me, and tailor it for everyone else. And the guy says, we've only got one app. I can't have 8 billion different combinations inside one app.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, fourth floor and rising, we said, what if you could? What if in real time, you could modify how the app looked to Jacob at the same time modifying it so it looked different for Peter. And it took a long time to figure out how to do that. But what we did is we figured out how to do it. And the way we did it was to look at what's the one ring that binds us all?
The wire.
HTTP. The wire. But the wire don't work the way Jacob. That's terrible grammar.
That was perfect. We accept that.
Yeah, but it doesn't work the way Jacob works.
Right.
And you know what? Who controls the mobile app? Well, someone else controls the mobile app, and they control their platform, and they want their stuff done a certain way. But yet, on every device on the planet, we're all connected via the web. So the place to start to solve the problem is inside the ring that binds us all, which is HTTP. Well, who controls HTTP? Well, in the old days, the good old days, it used to be the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, which was headed up by Sir Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the web. But then along came the bigs. And the bigs say, we'll build a browser. And what they've done is they've put their functionality into the browser. So now, if I call them up, if I come up with this new idea, I have to call Apple, Google, and Microsoft and say, can you update your browser to accommodate my one ring binds them all? And I've got calls out to all of them, but the CEOs are not returning my calls.
That's so weird.
It is weird. I don't understand it. But apparently they don't want to talk to me.
That's crazy.
So now who controls the wire is they do.
Mm.
So John has this brilliant idea. And there's this other wonderful person, Amy Webb. She's a futurist on LinkedIn. Absolutely adore her. And she did this. She's actually did narrated a video, which I can send to you on the Wall Street Journal. Every CEO wants to build a super app. Why it's so hard.
Ooh.
And we'll get to WeChat in a moment.
Nice.
But it's this wonderful video. And she's also got a wonderful webpage out there where she meets a CEO, and she asks the CEO what's on his mind. And he says, well, which one would you pick? Would you rather have a crystal ball that tells you the future? Or would you rather have a chessboard that maps out how to get to your future? And I go, oh my goodness, that is brilliant. Because what he's asking for is strategy. He's asking to know what Jacob wants. Because if he knows what Jacob wants in real time, guess what he does? He starts rearranging those deck chairs super fast. And so by the time Jacob gets to the top floor of this elevator ride, he looks at and he says, Peter, you're not going to believe this. I've got all my favorite ecosystems in this choice app. And 8 billion people around him go, so have we.
Mm.
Because someone orchestrated arranging just the right ecosystems for each person on the planet. And now all of a sudden, you start to get strategic insight. You start to be able to predict the future. And there's a great technology down in Australia. It's epistemology.com.au for Australia. And it's not prone to hallucinations. This is, and I met the guy, James Ward, another wonderful individual. And I said, and it's really complicated. Even for me, it's really complicated. And I said, sum it up, James. We're on the elevator. Jacob's climbing in, and we're going to get one floor with Jacob because he's pretty impatient. And he said, next best action.
Mm.
And I stopped instantly and rewrote the deck.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, oh my goodness. If Jacob tells me his next best action, or if I can figure it out and there's ways to do it, guess what? That deck chair is going to be perfectly aligned, and there's a pretty good chance Jacob's going to engage.
The AI in like I just was listening to somebody talk about the newer models that are coming out and how they're able to sort of compress intelligence and then base intuition off of new layers of intelligence, and it just kind of keeps going. And they gave the example of somebody who a computer that was programmed to play Go, but it intuited a move that no one had ever made in thousands of years. And so, right. and the person who was playing it got up and walked away because she was the champion. And she was like, but what they did is they've since taken that move, and human players are incorporating it in their games, and so it's a
Yep.
pretty good example of like this thing isn't here to replace you. And I know we're saying that
No.
a lot. It might in certain instances, so do be cautious of that. But I would say this is a great example of the way proper use of AI could lead to intuitions and next best actions that's based on consent information that comes from real data that isn't messed up or hallucinated on. I mean,
And
like it
there
just
you
feels
now,
like,
we're
man,
almost at the top floor.
ah,
You going, the very next problem you go is, how can I feed it authentic, accurate,
real,
value-based, consent-based data?
clean,
That
normalized.
normalized, I control it. Because if I trust the conductor who's going to send me up the stairs to the right deck
Mhm.
that's going to be tailored for me, what I want to be able to do is to share my information. But I've got to be able to share it so that I control it, so that if you misbehave, I can turn it all off.
Mm.
But now all of a sudden, the wire, where it had no useful data on it before, now has incredibly useful data on it. The conductor looks at it, but he also reads my terms of service. And I
This
say
is
to him, you know
key.
what? This is key. You can use my data for the following reasons. And if you want to use it for advertising, you must pay me for it. Now, he then agrees to that use. If he doesn't, the communication stops. Now, all of a sudden, you go, well, that's an ask bid engine, because he is going to connect to the Carnival. And the Carnival is sitting out there and saying, hey, we're looking for anybody who's got some really accurate data, and we will pay for that accurate data. So he sets up, and again, smart contract, you can do it. None of this is rocket science. It's all being done now. But now they can buy an ask bid engine. They can bid on my data, and then the advertiser gets direct to me. It's less like you've tailored the market directly to me. Those deck chairs are now painted in the colors I like. Now do that for 8 billion people in real time. And I think that's what we're really talking about. A carnival of markets represents all the markets on the planet.
And can you give the WeChat comparison too? Because in a previous conversation you said that, and it helped me understand the role of the conductor and the function of the user against the marketplace.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's do it in WeChat terms. So WeChat's sitting there in China. I think it started in 2011. I'm not sure, but anyway, the concept was really simple. Now, Apple didn't ship their phones overseas. Okay, so there was China didn't have any marketplace for it.
Mhm.
Android was just getting going. And so the Chinese manufacturers started building these cheap phones. So they didn't have much memory in them, and they were a little underpowered. So the guys and Tencent is the parent company, and WeChat is the social networking company. So the founders of WeChat took one look across the pond and said, Zuckerberg's doing a pretty good job making some money on advertising with that thing called Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what they did is they created a social network. It's WeChat.
Mm.
So if we got on a plane and went to Shanghai, first thing we do is download WeChat. Why? Because then we can chat with each other. So the population of China is 1.4 billion. 1.2 billion people engage every day with WeChat.
Wow.
Remember what that VC said? 100% mind and wallet share.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got pretty much the entire population on my app. Hooray! And then these guys said, you know what we really need to do? We need a credit card.
Mm.
So they built a wallet and they put a credit card in it. And I go, it's starting to sound a little familiar to X.
Mm-hmm.
X is a social network. Elon has just put in a payment rail called X.com. And that's exactly what WeChat did.
Mm.
Now here comes the magic. They looked at the carnival of markets and they said, you know what we need to do? We'll release a little developer kit to every vendor in China. And every vendor in China sits down, and it's free, and they create what they call a mini app. And they were a little underpowered, but what have you. And they put the mini app in the WeChat marketplace. So you and I walk up the stairs to the Titanic, and there's 4 million chairs. And each morning, you, a little laborious, but you go and find the 4 chairs that you want to interact with today. And I go and find the 4 chairs I want to interact with from my daily life journey. But the beauty of this is you're off to the chiropractor, then you're off to the dentist, and then you're off to the pharmacy, and or you go into a movie. In each one of those instances, there's a transaction. You have decided you're going to check out. You've bought a service. You've got your teeth cleaned. You've got your back fixed. And then you go, how am I going to pay for this? Oh, WeChat. And WeChat is the payment processor for those 4 million vendors. Why do you think X.com wants the Everything app?
Yeah.
He wants to be the payment processor for the 4 million vendors. I'll get to the problem with that in a little bit. So now all of a sudden, everyone's downloading WeChat. The vendors love it because they don't have to worry about payment processing. So guess what? Tencent is really like Visa or MasterCard.
Mm-hmm.
So Tencent now is, I think, the 20th largest company or most valuable company in the world. It has a market cap of 4 trillion Hong Kong dollars. And they do about, I think it's 100 billion US dollars a year. It's more in Renminbi, Chinese, fiat. And everyone uses it. So in this video that I'm going to send you, and I think it's at the 36-second mark. So you've only got to watch 36 seconds. And you get into it, and then Elon makes an appearance. And someone asked him a question, well, what would you do? He says, copy WeChat. That's all he says. Copy WeChat. Why? Because it prints money. But here's the thing. You and I have to arrange our own deck chairs from the Carnival of deck chairs. And you know what? We don't really differ much on each day, but, it's a pain in the butt. So now we come along, and now Elon wants to build this. So the first thing is, well, let's see if we can do that in the West. Well, the issues you've got instantly is privacy. You've got to solve all the privacy problems because there's no privacy in China. So someone's got to come up with a new privacy mechanism. But the other tiny little problem is Apple and Google. You see, they've built their equivalent of Tencent. They are Tencent in the West. So Tencent is the payment processor, and they're the hardware owners, in Apple's case. The marketplace is for all the developers to put their apps on that you and I use. And if you buy it, Apple takes 30%, Microsoft takes whatever they take. Renew a subscription, they take a piece of the action. So each morning, you and I go to the App Store and we rinse and repeat WeChat. But instead of dealing with Tencent, we deal with Apple and we deal with Google. But how does that help what John Singer's talking about for United Healthcare or Make America Healthy Again or any other business who wants to change their strategy? Essentially, you're locked into the big rails. And we looked at it and said, you know what? The one thing that they all support, no matter where you are in the world, they all have to support the web. But as we just said a few minutes ago, I think it was floor 4, browsers. Who controls the browsers?
Right.
The bigs. I've called them repeatedly, but they're just not returning my call. But I've got this great idea, but they don't like my great idea because it would impact their great idea.
Well, they're great returns, and
returns.
It kind of gets to this idea. If you followed us along and you've been on this elevator ride, you're starting to maybe start to see how this new vision of us at the center of our understanding of what we need, and then marketplaces serving us, rather than us being something that's being served up to the marketplace or having to engage with the marketplace, there's going to be a little bit more parity that's coming, and that might scare some people. But so you've described this. Can you give us like a story, like an example of, you worked with a healthcare company to kind of get this initial like prototype off the ground. Can you kind of explain how that functions?
I would have never have solved this problem if I hadn't have done healthcare.
Mm.
I realize that now. If I'd have gone any other vertical, banking wouldn't have solved it. Any other vertical except healthcare. Because exactly, you need to rewind those last 30 seconds where you were talking, and you need to print them out for everybody to see. Because instead of us serving the market serves us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in healthcare, everyone has a unique health condition.
Mm.
We are 8 billion people with unique health conditions. And in the 2015 Precision Health Initiative, it was signed into law by President Obama. He talks about individual variability.
Mm.
And what is individual variability? It's nuanced. It's not about personalizing care. It's about taking everything into account that is each individual. So it's more about your daily life journey. It's about all of the things that you interact with on your daily life journey that go to make up your total overall health. And I'm staring at this going, how the heck am I going to solve that? Because that's a carnival of markets.
Mm.
You're asking me, and they did ask me at Kaiser, you've got 14 million patients. You want me to design an app that supports 14 million individually variable patients in real time? You don't know the answer to this, but how many apps, health-related apps, are on the App Store? 350,000.
Well, I was just about to say there's probably a lot.
How many mental health apps are on the App Store? Last time I checked, I think it was 20,000.
Right.
And you go, well, why are there 20,000? Well, because Jacob didn't like 19,999, but he liked that one.
Mm.
And I go, well, why? Well, because he's an individual. And so we have to tailor the carnival and all of the services to serve that one person.
Mm.
So that was the biggest leap that I had to make, is I had to tailor everything down to one person. And I had to have enough context to pick the next best action, to get the right chairs, and then make them available for that individual, not the individual trying to find them. Why? Have you ever tried to search through 350,000 apps?
Oh, man.
Not doing it. And therein lies the problem. They were victims of their own success. Is now on Apple's App Store, they have 2 million apps. And you know what? Enough with the apps. That's billions and billions in development costs.
Yeah.
And yet most of them have almost zero engagement.
Oh, no, I worked with law firms before this, and every law firm needed an app. But I think the ideological bent for that was a bit of control, a bit of a place where we can get you centered, because you're out here over on the wilds of the internet. What we need to do is give some kind of some kind of corralling, mentality. But the ecosystem centered market strategy is a new way to think. We've only got 2 more floors, so I have to ask you, we are going to provide all the links. You're going to see it all on the show page. If somebody was interested, they're an agency out here, they're interested. What is the first actionable step they could take to get involved in ecosystem, centered mindset? Like, how can they get started?
I think the first one, as we're reaching the top floor here, is for the first time ever, you get to tailor your message to each individual. And that has never happened. It really hasn't happened, because part of this innovation gives you accurate, verifiable data. And so when you receive that, you can now tailor the message. So instead of tailoring healthcare, I'm tailoring advertising. I never understood it. Try and navigate across a fintech ecosystem.
Mm.
They're nowhere near as hard as healthcare ecosystems, which are so dense with so many different players, but they all have a commonality to them. They're all connected.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have to do is law 7, fifth and final floor, is we have to deliver a consistent user experience, so that each time you use it and each time I use it, the experience is identical in the use, but the feeling we get from it is tailored to my individual variability.
Ah,
And that's the paradigm shift. And that's why it's so hard to tell people about what I do, is because it's the wire.
mm-hmm.
We've modified the wire that runs the entire globe.
Mm-hmm.
Once you use this wire, you won't ever go back. It's got privacy built in, it's got consent built in, it's got security built in. But what we did is we built it inside what everybody else is using.
Mm-hmm.
Why? So they didn't have to change their thought process and they didn't have to change any infrastructure. Are you already using HTTP and HTML? Yes, sir. Then you're already compliant.
Mm.
But what this does is it essentially takes his silos of one economic unit, a carnival of markets, and an individual, and it connects them horizontally, and it breaks down those silos and binds them all together.
You can't even believe how amazing this is. I mean, I'm serious. I've spent 4 or 5 hours with this dude, and every time I talk to him, it is a mind-blowing conversation because you have this energy that's like super it's just captivating because everyone else is like, these ecosystems that we're currently dealing with, the products are getting kind of whack. They're making a lot of decisions without us kind of, we're not 100% sure. We had a conversation about data nihilism, like sort of this dementia, schizophrenic relationship with our database profile. We don't even know where it is. We don't even know how it gets to you. A lot of marketing ad agencies are having a lot of data, and they have to go through compliance. And now there's going to be a lot more privacy laws that are enacted at the state level, the global level. I mean, they're looking for an easier way to deal with this too. So
imagine you walk onto the Titanic and the Titanic knows you're 100% compliant. We're going to be 100% compliant. We're not going to violate any privacy rules and regulations. And John uses this word, computational imagination. You know, when you said products get a bit whack,
mm-hmm.
and you're right, because if you could only get some feedback from me, I could help you unwackify them.
Wow.
Really bad grammar. You could delight me with a new product.
And you wouldn't be doing it in a way that was foisted upon people. You would be engaging in a dynamic interchange of actual things that people actually wanted. I mean, this hurts marketers' brains.
It does, because now you can engage with trusted brands. You embrace it. Everything is this environment where I want to work with you.
And guess what? You won't. And then your whole pitches could be different. Like, buy now, please buy now. These people would be already interested in things. So now it's a bit more of a different game. It's a bit more about signaling. It's a bit more.
Because each company that embraces this, guess what? They have an innovation agenda.
Oh my.
Their innovation agenda is based on knowledge from his individual variability. As you go about your daily life journey, things change. Well, now I can start, I'll go to the ecosystem, the Carnival. Hey, Mr. Barker. And you pull in the right thing and you go, oh my God.
And all of your marketing personas, which we're now doing in a vacuum based on sort of thoughts. And like, I bet this guy wears these glasses. You wouldn't have to do any guesswork. It's just such an exciting thing. We're out of time. I want people to connect with you. How can they learn more about this and connect with you online, Peter?
Probably the best place actually is LinkedIn. I'm pretty vocal there. You can email me, Peter Cranstone, peter.cranstone at 3P Mobile. And probably if you really want to look at a great website where we demoed all of this and we have videos that show how it all works, is 3phealth.com. And it explains it all. And then, but you'll love this, Jacob. They go, well, this is healthcare. No, it's a carnival of markets because healthcare is everything. It's literally my financial health, my mental health, what I'm eating, all of those things.
Oh, wow.
If you can't solve healthcare, you've got no chance of solving everything else. But healthcare is, and we did it. And Kaiser, this was one of the things that Kaiser asked for is, well, could Jacob create his own marketplace? An innovation agenda, anyone? Could you imagine? He wants to create his own marketplace and he tells you, you just go to the ecosystem and you pick the right markets that he's really interested in and they're funneling through you as the conductor.
Cheese or chocolate?
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Cheese or chocolate?
Cheese.
Batman or Superman?
Superman.
Okay. Hash browns or tater tots?
Tater tots.
Okay. Ketchup or mustard? Ooh.
Mustard.
See, a lot of smart people answer mustard. Not saying a lot of dumb people answer ketchup, whatever. Okay. Causation, correlation. Anyway, next, IKEA. Is it hell or is it heaven?
Hell.
The audience goes nuts. Sit down. Last question. Clean spreadsheets or clean bed sheets?
Bed sheets.
I got to go to bed at night. Peter's a realist.
What Gets Measured is a NinjaCat podcast. Please rate and review the show wherever you find your podcasts. Share this episode on social and visit us on the web at ninjacat.io.